Okay, welcome to this class session on questionnaire surveys and media research for the module COM 3703, media content and media audiences. My name is Mr. Lichaba. I'm responsible for both the section on media language and discourse, as well as this section questionnaire surveys in media research. So this is the fourth session on the portfolio or guidelines per individual theme or study unit. So if you have not accessed the three previous recordings, we encourage you to do so by going to the course site and access the recordings there. Okay, for this question there is a scenario given to you where you need to base your answers on the scenario. The scenario goes as follows. The office of the mayor in your community has identified a need to establish a local newspaper in your area. The office has requested you to conduct research to determine the awareness, opinions, and expectations of the community members regarding the local newspaper to be launched in your area. So this is your scenario of which you need to base your answers on. For 4.1, you need to justify why the questionnaire survey research would be suitable for this investigation. You need to then consult section 10.4 of chapter 10 of the prescribed book. Here issues requiring survey research are outlined and discussed. So issues that can be investigated using survey research are outlined there. So you'll notice also that stuff about people's opinions, awareness, and so forth are also discussed under this section. So please provide a justification of the suitability of survey research in relation to the scenario. We move to the next question, which is question 4.2. Here we need to define the term population and identify the accessible population for the study. So the definition of the term population is worth 2 marks, and then the identification of the accessible population for the study will be then 1 mark. All in all, this question is worth 3 marks. Please take note of the mark allocation. So here we just require you to provide a theoretical definition of the term population. After that, then you need to identify the accessible population for the study as reflected in your scenario. So what is population in terms of survey research? Provide us with that definition, and then from there, after you've read through the section on the population, you'll then be able to distinguish between accessible population and target population in as so far as survey research is concerned. Then this when you will be able to then to identify the accessible population for your study. So you need to read section 10.6.1 of chapter 10 of your prescribed book to get information on the aspect of population. We move on to 4.3, Here you need to discuss the difference between probability and non-probability sampling. So what is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling? So there are two kinds of sampling methods in scientific research, namely probability and non-probability sampling. So you need to then to know the difference between the two, right? So this is a theoretical discussion with 4 marks. Provide a theoretical discussion of the difference between probability and non-probability sampling. Read section 10.6.1 of chapter 10 of your prescribed book, where the concept of sampling is addressed in detail. And then moving right along, we go to 4.4. Which sampling technique would you use and why? So meaning, which sampling technique would you use for this study as reflected in your scenario, right? Where the mayor is wants to know the opinions and preferences and of the people in your area regarding a new community newspaper, right? So there's 1 mark for the identification of the suitable technique and 2 marks for the justification. So once again, you need to take note of the mark allocation. So after reading on the concept of sampling, you will be able to determine the suitable technique for the study, right? So you also need to provide reasons why you have selected that particular sampling technique. And then for 4.5, you need to select a suitable sampling method. Remember 4.4, you've discussed sampling technique, whether probability or non-probability. So there are 2 kinds of a sampling technique. So it's either the study uses probability or non-probability. So after you've read and understood the difference between probability and non-probability sampling, you will then be able to select a suitable sampling method, right? Each technique has its own kind or variations or types, right? So under probability, there are different kinds of sampling methods, right? So for instance, census type sampling, simple random sampling, and so forth. These are types of probability sampling. Same goes for non-probability sampling. There are purposive sampling and others. So here you need to then decide on the suitable sampling method for your scenario. So read 10.6.2 for a discussion on probability sampling, and 10.6.3 for a discussion on non-probability sampling methods. All right. Under 4.6, then is the question goes like, what type of questionnaire survey would be suitable for this research? Here we've got 2 marks for the identification and a brief description of a suitable questionnaire survey, and then reasons reasons for the answer is worth 2 marks. All in all, this question is worth 4 marks. So there are different types of questionnaire surveys. So this will depend on the aim of the study, the geographical distribution, the characteristics of the population. So you've read about population previously, and also the resources that the researcher has in possession, and so forth and so forth. So there are various kinds. So we cannot just choose any type of questionnaire survey, right? So we can't choose a computer survey for people who reside in a rural area. So your research will not make sense at all. So hence we're saying there are factors that determine the type of questionnaire survey. So for the scenario, then what type of questionnaire survey is suitable? So read section 10.7 of your chapter 10 in the prescribed book. So then this is the last section, which is worth 15 marks. So make sure that you spend a lot of time here to address all the aspects of this question. So this question, you need to design a questionnaire for the research study. Include a letter of introduction, which is worth 5 marks, and also you need to formulate 5 questions for your questionnaire and use a variety of question formats in your design. So just you need to understand that for this question you need to actually design a questionnaire. So this is not a theoretical question, but an application questions whereby you need to design an actual questionnaire yourself by addressing all the aspects. So the first thing that you need to do under this question, you need to design a letter of introduction, which is worth marks. This letter of introduction must cover all the aspects as outlined in section 10.8.8 of your prescribed book on page 472. So in order for you to receive all these 5 marks, make sure that your introduction covers all these aspects as outlined therein. After you've designed your introduction letter, then you need to formulate. This is where you design the actual questionnaire by formulating 5 questions for your questionnaire. This is then worth 10 marks. In your formulation of these 5 questions for your questionnaire, be careful to use, or you must actually use, different question formats. So there are different question formats when we design a questionnaire. So these formats include, among others, multi-choice questions, contingency questions, rank order questions, Likert types questions, and so forth. So this means that your questionnaire must have different types of question formats, right? So must include all these the question formats, yes, in your questionnaire, in order for you to get the full 10 marks. Let's say, for instance, your questionnaire comprises only of rank order questions. So this means that you have not addressed what the question requires, because you've only provided us with one type of question format for this section, meaning that you may only receive 2 out of 10 marks, losing then the other 8 marks. So make sure that you include various kinds of question formats. So for different kinds of question formats, we need to read section 10.8.1 of chapter 10. So the different types of question format are outlined under this section, which is 10.8.1. Excuse me. So that will be all for this class session. We wish you all of the best with your portfolio compilation. Feel free to contact us should you require more help and clarity and assistance. So also please note that next week we'll be having an online class which will be live. The class will be focusing on the overall portfolio, how to approach a portfolio overall. So we'll be dealing with most aspects regarding technical presentation and so forth and so forth. Make sure that you join that class next week and ask your questions as well. Thank you.